Chapter 17, Tuesday, 10 p.m. Eavesdropping. It was my first true test of the little project I used to keep busy through the long drive. I smiled as I heard soft footsteps going down the stairs. The sound had that slight echo you expect in a stairwell. I certainly hadn't expected that level of fidelity. I breathed a little sigh of relief when Riley's voice came crisp and clear into my right ear. Why are old basements always so fucking creepy? Fuck me, this one is bad. Look, Larry, we need to talk. Fine, look, I don't know what you heard about the party tonight, but... Larry began. I don't give a rat's ass about that party. You feel that chill? Never mind. Okay, I do care about the damn party, but that's not what we need to talk about now. I need to know what the hell is up with this place, and don't give me that look. You know, and you know I damn well know you know. You and the boys club gossip more than my grandma's bridge gang. Now, wait a second. Okay, Riley, I'll tell you what I know. In fact, I think you need to hear this. First, tell me what Agent Martinez has told you, Larry said. Who is Agent Martinez? Exactly. Now, listen. No, let me talk, damn it. A robber baron built the mansion and guest house. Not sure if he worked for Rockefeller or was a competitor, maybe even family. Doesn't matter. We're talking about one of those families that forgot how to make money 100 years ago. Okay, let me get to it. Jesus. I heard Riley take a swallow. Larry followed suit, and I joined them. I was sure I heard him wipe his lips with the back of his forefinger, which he considered better mannered than the back of his hand. He didn't speak for a second, and I imagined him grinning back at her glare. So the family sells everything but the mansion and the house next door. They get it declared historical. Apparently plans came and went, but the two buildings just sat here forever. Then, out of nowhere, a few years ago, the family sold the mansion and the guest house. No for sale signs, no open houses. One day, Driscoll just shows up and says he bought the place. A young doctor and his wife do the same with the guest house. Guess it caused a little bit of panic. And we, meaning you, don't have a clue how Driscoll got this place. Best guess, the family shit got divvied up and somebody needed cash. He paused, and in my mind, I saw him holding up a hand. What is important is that a guy named Harry Driscoll ended up with a mansion overnight. And he starts fixing it up, at least this end of the place. Follow me? Yeah, sure. Wake me up when it gets interesting, Riley said. It just did. So wake up, as in seriously, wake up, Riley. Now, Driscoll gets busted for some security fraud crap. Nothing big time. But you guys, take his assets, as in the company he set up offshore to buy this place. Now, he's not even looking at serious time. Probably a few years at one of the resorts. But he starts talking. They say the guy was really freaked out. Are you awake, Riley? You sure? This is the interesting part. Okay, so no one gives a shit except for one agent, Connie Martinez. All she had to do was sit next to some fucking prosecutor and show the badge. But no, she had a better idea. Still awake? This is your wake-up call. Fuck, that hurts. Come on. And it's fucking sexual harassment. Ouch, cut it out. All right already. His voice was coming out the left ear, then the right ear, then back again. She was circling him. I decided to bug the phone cameras next. It was worth a shot. Go get another beer, Riley ordered, her voice going from my left ear, bouncing off the gel pillars in my brain to my right this time. It was the only way to explain why the voice did not come across as Riley-ish. It sounded playful. I acted surprised when Larry showed up at the refrigerator. The act was wasted. He didn't even look at me, the witness he was protecting. My bloody, decapitated head could have been lying next to my laptop. He reached into the fridge, pulled out 2 light beers, and practically ran back down the hall. Here you go. Hey, twist off caps. Who'd have guessed? My left ear said in the voice I had heard in a lot of corner bars. Larry was on a roll. Where were we? Okay, I'll finish first. So Driscoll begins blabbing about Cottonwood being some sort of QAnon Central Command. And it's got sleeper cells building up all around Denver. Maybe if Driscoll was talking about Colorado Springs or out in the sticks where that barmaid pistol-toting nutjob congresswoman lives, maybe someone would listen. And the more he talks, the worse it gets. I mean, Driscoll was acting like he was building the replacement for Epstein's Island, Larry said. I take it no one took him seriously? What is it with that chill that comes and goes? Let's get this finished. Okay, let me guess. No one bought his act except this Martinez, Riley said. Exactly. But do you know why she did and they didn't? Larry asked. Riley surprised me by simply saying no. It was clear that the guy was exaggerating. He's a player. But there was something there, and most everybody thinks Martinez saw it, Larry said. And? Riley prompted, all girlishness gone. No, not and, just the real world. Riley, all of this took place after January 6th, after the insurrection. There weren't enough resources in all of Homeland Security to handle the nut jobs posing on videos. And there are gated communities with Trump signs plastered on the damn gates all over the country. So, no, they didn't take it seriously because they didn't have the time or resources. Plus, you know it's all a big game hunt. Why go hunting here for small game when the trophies are in places like Mar-a-Lago? Larry asked, and took a long swallow of light beer, undoubtedly hiding a grimace. Except Martinez, Riley asked, as she joined me in a swallow, mine being of real beer. Yeah, except Martinez. Something Driscoll said struck a chord. And like someone else I know, she wouldn't give it up, Larry replied. Let me guess. They let her run with it, Riley said. Yep, let Martinez have this place wired up. Not that big of a deal anymore. And gave her Driscoll to run. There's a little room down here where she put the monitors and hung out. It was perfect. This is just a big storeroom no one would ever come down to. Shit, there's that chill again. I sure as hell wouldn't want to do time down here. She said Driscoll bragged that he had planned to put a world-class wine cellar down here someday. Good for him. What happened? Larry drew the moment out with a long swallow. Driscoll, who was definitely a popular guy, had a party. Got the whole thing on a dozen feeds. This is QAnon territory. Lots of the N-word. Everyone talking about the poor patriots being hunted down. The works. And since we are still a democracy, nothing illegal. So they shut her operation down, I suppose. Riley snarled. No, Riley, you don't get it. Why would they shut it down? I mean, they had their problem child stuck in a basement, building a case that would never happen. Unless Martinez found guns and bombs stashed somewhere, the bosses didn't give a shit. Okay, so what the fuck happened? What happened was that Driscoll disappeared after the party. Vanished. Just fucking gone. Video of him going into the bedroom and nothing showing him coming out, ever. All the windows in the master have security sensors, good ones, and they show the windows weren't opened. Plus, every damn house in this neighborhood has Ring. And there are traffic cameras in every store across the river. It's one thing to bypass a window sensor. Resetting it, not so much. And getting away without being caught on one damn camera? Guy was smarter than they gave him credit for. And Martinez? Well, that's my whole point. She's disappeared too, Larry said in a satisfied voice. What? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you saying she and Driscoll, or are you saying, like, disappeared? What? For fuck's sake, Riley, they're the FBI, not the goddamn mob. You think they'd let one of their own just disappear? First, they'd take this dump apart brick by brick, and every one of these nut job Q-types would be getting their fingernails pulled out. No, not literally. But that's how these assholes would feel. Jesus, Riley, she got transferred somewhere, like a basement in D.C., or maybe out on some Indian reservation. When I say disappeared, I mean her career. No one knows because there wasn't any love lost, and no one cares. Are you getting my drift? After a long silence, Riley asked, What about Driscoll? What about him? Don't push it, Larry. You're still missing the point. No one gives a shit about Driscoll. I mean, they put out the warrants. Someday he'll show up or not. Trust me, from what I hear, the guy was whacked out after he cut the deal. They said he was almost tripping at the party. I mean, most guys would be nervous, right? And this was the guy they all agreed was scared. Sure, he got a deal that kept him out of a country club joint for a few months. But he was also fucking around with some dangerous assholes. No one knows what the hell was going on with the guy, and no one cares. A long silence. Then Riley softly said, You're saying no one cares about Harding? No, they care. They care that they have to even think about Harding. Dragna is yesterday's news, and he was never much of a trophy. If they got anything useful out of Nicky, I'd know. I hear he's mostly dishing shit out on the guys he and Dragna washed money for. My guess is that he's doing the usual, letting us cull the herd for the big players, Larry said. Bringing Nicky into WITSEC was way above your pay grade, Larry. Nothing you could do. Does Harding know that your little road trip was all on you? Does he have any idea how much shit you took for it? I mean, all personal time, all on your nickel, as you like to say? No, and he is never going to, ever. That was part of the deal of my coming back in, remember? Look, right now things are shit all over. No one even knows who the bad guys are anymore. The systems are getting hacked to death. Big Pharma is nothing but another cartel. And the biggest trophy since Nixon is the QAnon Don Corleone down in Mar-a-Lago. Hell, if they needed me this bad instead of being exiled, Agent Martinez might be back on the job sipping pina coladas around a pool in a bikini doing surveillance. I heard she's built for it. Like I said, she reminds me of you. Well, maybe a little. Ouch! The following sounds came from both ears, and when I finally figured it out, I pulled the earbuds out so hard one flew across the kitchen. It took some time to find. By the time I did, Larry was back to showing off the advantages of being a good old boy in the Good Old Boy Network. No, it's not a conspiracy. It's simpler. The feds now have this property that they can't use, don't want, and Driscoll's offshore company, now theirs, is getting swamped with liens, tickets, and threats of lawsuits, making it impossible to unload. Driscoll seemed to do whatever the fuck he wanted. Now, in Cottonwood, if the lawn isn't mowed right on schedule, the shit hits the fan. All the work Driscoll did on a historic landmark, somehow no one noticed him doing it. Now, here you come with a handyman witness who stands out like a sore thumb that they can hide in a gated community. Of course, you don't take credit, even for being lucky. You argue with them. There's no big plan to let Nicky show up or Horn. Hell, I've told Paul the Dragna would probably just put out an open hit if he hasn't already. Paul is crazy if he thinks he can get Nicky to settle this personally. Nicky's a pro, not some street corner jerk-off. But if someone shows up, the feds don't care who it is. And if that someone gets Paul, so what? It will all be recorded. So, no, they're not worried that the neighborhood will recognize you or Paul. Dark web, white web, it doesn't matter. These guys who live here don't watch the same channels as Paul's old neighbors. The guys in Paul's old neighborhood don't give a fuck about politics. And what about Harding? Riley asked. I told you, I really don't know how he recovered. Paul is pretty tight-lipped. Shit, his surgeon was past weird, and that hospital made my skin crawl. It was as if they put him in remission or something. Anyway, he doesn't think he has long to live, and all he wants is a crack at Nicky. I say give him a shot. He sure as hell fucking deserves it. You like the guy, Riley said. Riley, I owe the guy. But not for anything you did, she said. Maybe not for what I did, but I sure as hell do for what I know. And yeah, I like him. So what? He's a friend and a good guy. Maybe he fucked up. Who doesn't? But he sure as shit didn't mean for his wife to get wasted. And you two never talk about it. No, Riley, we don't and never will. What's the point? None, I guess. Now, about that party, Riley said, and I leaned forward. Finally, about that party. Larry said, How'd you hear about that? I said, God damn it, Larry, is the fucking party on or not? It's off, Riley answered. I looked around frantically, checked my microphone, and was looking down the hallway to see if the basement door was shut, as I had assumed it would be when Larry spoke. Yeah, I got the message, he said. I felt my shoulders slump as I walked back to the 2 acres of Kitchen Island. I doubted there were any surprises waiting in eternity. And you found out how? Larry asked, letting her hear his impatience. Speakerphone on conference table. Stay quiet and they forget you're there, or maybe they fake it. I was sure I heard giggles after someone mentioned a surprise, she said. I gave it to Paul, Larry said. You what? I gave it to Paul. He needs it more than I. Give it time, brother. Give it time, Riley hissed. The laughter came into both ears. Let's combine per diem tonight, Riley whispered. You mean forget the Bates Motel across the river? Thought we had reservations, Larry asked. They don't take reservations. They book by the hour. I can't believe that's where they were sticking us. Maybe I should ask Harding. I mean, he needs it more than you. Instead of slapping the earphones out of my ears this time, I switched to code and music. I composed the composable side of my face and smiled when they appeared in the doorway. Riley slowed down just enough to remind me to read the packet on the island before the FBI coordinator visited in the morning. As Larry followed Riley out the door to the garage, I said, Hey, Larry, I forgot to tell you, your daughter called. Something about one of the kids. It stopped him like he'd been shot. He turned slowly to face me, his blue eyes cold, sending a message. When Riley's laugh drifted through the door, his mouth twitched. He walked back to the counter, grinning as I got my feet under me. Then he picked up the packet and bent over the counter to examine it before setting it back down. It clunked on the granite. Nice shot, asshole. And to think I was going to arrange a surprise for you, he murmured, walking away. Watching him leave, I knew how a dog felt when its owner walked out of the animal shelter. I finished checking Martinez's server to take my mind off it. When I found the PDF with the locations of the cameras, I looked around to see if I could see the ones in the kitchen. They weren't hard to find. Everything was off-the-shelf, low-end devices used by parents, spouses, significant others, and perverts. When Larry mentioned a room with monitors, I suspected they did it on the cheap. Finding their router signal took time only because I didn't want to leave litter. My hack into it wasn't even really a hack. Government and commercial IT organizations are highly departmentalized and never follow their own rules. The videos streamed into the server in the basement over Wi-Fi from a few dozen cameras with microphones. They had left uploading the data back to the mothership up to Martinez. More work for her, less for IT. Unless they stashed another errant employee downstairs, the only thing watching me was a PC that I could buy at Walmart for a few $100s. No wonder the other law enforcement agencies across the country never trusted the FBI. If I lived long enough, contractors would add code to send the data to the cloud automatically, so Larry and Riley could access it on their mobile phones. They would charge the government 10 times more than Ring, and the system would work half as well. I leaned my elbows on the counter, sipped ale gone warm, the way it was meant to be, and faced the truth. I had been excited about the surprise. Yet I would have traded it in a heartbeat to sit around a table and be with my last friend. After a moment, I revised that to Larry and, someday, maybe, a new friend, Riley. I remembered a different lifetime when I sat with my best friend, another man's wife, watching my wife and her husband as they moved about the room being seen. And somewhere on some cloud, there were still pictures of me, Gabriella, Richard, and my best friend Cynthia. That kind of realization was probably why I always stayed busy. Richard was always between our wives, with a long arm wrapped around each. I was on the end, unable to put an arm around Gabriella. It looked like I had photobombed shots of beautiful people, and that was when both sides of my face matched. Most of the photographs taken by the photographers covering the events showed Richard with his arm draped casually around Gabriella's shoulders as they worked the party. With his Sir Lancelot looks, her long jet-black hair, exotic oval face, and sultry eyes, they were the center of attention. When he was with his wife, Cynthia, who was almost as tall as Richard, he put his hand casually around her waist, the same way he did when pictures were taken of him and his buddies. To me, this was to make a point that she was only his wife, nothing more. Gabriella often commented that Cynthia didn't make the effort she should. Cynthia had the fair skin of the Irish, blue-green eyes, a full mouth that had laugh lines before their time, and blonde hair she kept short. Gabriella's mouth always tightened when Richard showed us a close-up picture of Cynthia on a ski slope when they were in college. Cynthia was slightly flushed, chin down and eyes wide, inviting and serious. It was the headshot pose of a girl entering womanhood. Richard had called her a Bond girl, as in Bond, James Bond. The boy in me loved that picture. The man in me loved the beautiful woman she became, the woman I could talk to about anything, a best friend. I sighed, shut my laptop, and headed for the hallway to the only bathroom I could get to. My plans to draw Nikki to this house could wait until the next day. A part of me regretted not setting the trap while we were on the road. I had read everything the FBI had on him, and seen photos of him throughout his life. The grainy image of the back of him leaving the restaurant, his signature ponytail hanging out of his cap, was burned into my soul. I intended to kill him, because that was all I could do. But I really wanted to know what the hell had happened, and, most importantly, my role. It would have been fine with me if he had walked into the kitchen, caught me unarmed, casually taken out 2 more ales, explained everything, answered all my questions, then said, "It's only business," and shot me. For all I knew, we might have been friends at one time. I shrugged it off. I could set the trap the next day. That night I would sleep one last time without worrying about someone paying me a short, non-conversational visit. Given what waited for me in eternity, it might not be such a bad thing. I realized the lightning was letting up and squared my shoulders to walk down a hallway. It occurred to me just how fucked up I was. Then the lights went out.